Welcome back to the Landlord Page podcast. I'm Mike here today presenting with Andy, fresh back from honeymoon. So congratulations, Andy.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming back. Today joining us, two of the avocado partners, Chris and Stephen, who function across Camberley and into now Farnborough.
You're not seeing that much of an increase in rental yield. What I think you're seeing across the board, whether it's Camberley, Frimley, Farnborough, our core areas, bring fleet into that. The prices for rental, they're not that much different.
Yeah.
Unless it's something exceptional, So if you've got a, super high end 2,000 square foot apartment in the middle of the Blue Triangle in Fleet, then yes, it's going to be worth crazy top money. You don't really get that kind of property in Farnborough. But I would say, for your average 2-bedroom apartment, 2-bedroom semi, terrace, whatever, 3-bedroom, I think they're all relatively similar.
Yeah. So today we're going to talk Farnborough specifically, an investment in Farnborough. We all know that landlords across the southeast are selling at a faster rate than they're buying, but we are taking calls from landlords who want to expand their portfolios because they see the opportunity that is there with rising rents. So without any further ado, firstly, Stephen, first visit to the podcast and in the studio.
Yeah.
So welcome in.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Stephen's an agent of considerable experience across the Farnborough area. I think born and bred as well.
It.
So we've got a good guy in the studio. Chris has been here a couple of times, so needs less of an intro.
I've tried to talk less today.
So guys, let's talk Farnborough. For those of people who aren't local, where is Farnborough? What's its origins and where is it now?
So Farnborough, birthplace of British aviation. You should know.
Good fact.
Very good fact. And brilliant for Farnborough Show Week as well. One of the best things about Farnborough, in my opinion. It's a commuter town. It's got the main line station there. It's got the fast train up to London Waterloo, 38 minutes.
That's right.
It's on the M3, Junction 4A and Junction 4. Literally, it's a commuter's paradise in that respect for wherever one needs to get to. You can get to the A3 pretty quickly as well. But it's a good town. It's a very densely populated town. It's super popular. It's got plenty of green space. Values for properties have held very, very well. Rental prices have held very, very well over the last 10 years. And it's just it's a cracking place, certainly for an investment purpose. Everything we've had for rental up there, particularly the last couple of months, has gone straight away, hasn't it? It's just literally walked itself out the door. It's kind of like the sales market was over the last couple of years, basically. But yeah, very popular town in Hampshire with exceptionally good commuter links.
Nice. So as a general wider area, it's part of the urban sprawl, I guess, that where Farnborough's been enveloped into Camberley and Aldershot, Ashvale, Mitchett, Cove, all of these areas, which if I drive through them now, having gone to Farnborough Sixth Form College, one just merges into the next. Farnborough being 38 minutes from London, I'll pose a question. Is it the cheapest town within about half an hour of London?
That's a very, very good question, and actually, it might be. Aldershot's a little bit further away. Or is it really? Actually, yeah. Do you know what? It may well be one of them. If you compare it to Fleet, which is obviously that little bit further, it's next door to Farnborough. But Fleet is a very, very expensive town. The Blue Triangle, for example, some exceptional properties there of very, very high value. But if you compare Fleet to Farnborough, then yes, Farnborough is probably one of the cheapest places that's within less than 40 minutes of central London.
So here's an investor's question: if you're comparing Fleet and Farnborough, what's the premium to buy a property in Fleet over Farnborough as a rough percentage?
I would say, most of our business has been focused around Farnborough since Steve and I collaborated, and we've done a few bits in Fleet though. So I would say, I think it could be a 5-ish %, 5 to 10%.
Thing is with Fleet though, Fleet's well known for its exceptional schools.
Yeah.
And I would say in Farnborough, the station is in the heart of Farnborough, whereas Fleet Station is on the outskirts, coming out of Fleet, going into Farnborough.
Yeah.
Whereas then Fleet goes the other side of the station. So yeah, I'd say
I'd say you're looking somewhere between 5 and 10%.
So the leading question, the reason I asked that is then how do rents stack up? So if I'm buying a house in Fleet over Farnborough, I'm paying up to 10% premium for the postcode.
Are you getting 10% extra?
Am I getting
rental yield?
10% in my rent, or am I getting a better return in Farnborough for my standard 3-bed semi?
No, see, I don't think you're not seeing that much of an increase in rental yield. What I think you're seeing across the board, whether it's Camberley, Frimley, Farnborough, are core areas. Bring Fleet into that. The prices for rental, they're not that much different.
Yeah,
I mean, unless it's something exceptional, So if you've got a super high end 2,000 square foot apartment in the middle of the Blue Triangle in Fleet, then yes, it's going to be worth crazy top money. You don't really get that kind of property in Farnborough, but I would say for your average 2-bedroom apartment, 2-bedroom semi, terrace, whatever, 3-bedroom, I think they're all relatively similar.
Yeah, because again, bring it back to the schools. That's why a lot of people go to Fleet for the schools.
Yeah, and I think
the rental's not going to be hugely
and
different, unlike a West End where you've got Gordon School catchment area and you're paying a premium to be 900 metres close to that.
Yeah, and I think with Fleet in particular, obviously, most tenants want long-term rentals at the moment. And I think for those with family that are focusing particularly around schools, Fleet, therefore, you're probably more likely to have more longevity from a family tenancy, if you want to call it that, than you would for the likes of Farnborough, which therefore might make it worth that little bit more as well.
That's where these sorts of hub towns, and I'd compare Farnborough to Bracknell, where I've done a lot of my work, is a lot of the jobs for the local area are in Farnborough. The sixth forms are in Farnborough. The bigger colleges are in Farnborough, and as you say, the best transport links are in and out of Farnborough. So potentially the renters are going to hit that market first, and then once they've lived there for 2, 3, 4 years and look to buy, they'll then disperse out to the higher priced residential areas like Farnham or Fleet potentially as options. But from a buy-to-let point of view, if you're getting 10% off to be closer to London, closer to the airport, closer to the jobs, closer to the transport links, is Farnborough the better option in North Hampshire and North Surrey for landlords?
Yes,
absolutely. Yeah,
doesn't it? Well, we got the big business parks, the likes of Fleur, Nokia buildings, the BMW, all these corporates, all these big corporate companies,
super brands,
that obviously get people into for 2 to 5 year contracts. So company lets.
We've said that before on the podcast, is that wherever you see the major players going into, so like your Nokia, BMW, and you've got their headquarters there, etc., that is an area to be in, and that's an investment area, because they're not going to be in those areas if it's not worth being there. So, if they've got people coming on the long contracts and all of that sort of stuff, well, that's going to boost the rentals up because you've got those workers coming over and working from those offices. So, I mean, investment-wise in Farnborough, what is going on in Farnborough at the moment? Is there any investment going into it? Because we've obviously got the shopping centre, haven't we? The Farnborough Shopping Centre. Is there any investment going into that? Is there any housing bought out?
There's huge housing developments. I think it was about 17 million agreed to be bought out, and a lot more housing and developments have been done in the central there. But then there's a load more sort of growth with regards to the expansion of the town centre itself, and money's being sort of put in with regards to additional shops, and it's been changed around, if that makes sense.
So what does it look like now, and what will it look like in 5 to 10 years?
I mean, there's, as Stephen says, there is a fair whack of finance going into Farnborough. There's also a lot of new development still going on as well. Carla Home's got a massive site near Southwood.
That's finished now.
Yeah,
next one's Bellway, isn't it?
Yes, sorry, Bellway. And also we've got the other one, which is just opposite our office in Farnborough as well, which a massive block of flats on the old Hamblabo roundabout, but albeit going slower progress than they'd like. But I think in terms of what it will eventually look like, because I think what Farnborough is probably missing is, particularly around the town centre, is some of the bigger retailers, which have vacated. It's a good town centre. There's a lot of space there, for some quality good units there. But like with a lot of town centres at the moment, similar to Camberley, and obviously House of Fraser and everything has just disappeared off the face of the earth as well, unfortunately. But there's some big names coming out of the high street now, and it's the same all over the country, not just Camberley and Farnborough, obviously. But I think they need to do something to help attract those big brands back and make it more of a town centre that people will go to.
I think with the housing developments going up, if the investment's there from them, and there's more people going into those regions,
That's it.
You'll have the big players' shops and all of that sort of stuff taking note and realising that there's a market for us being there. Let's get back into that. And we've seen it before, haven't we? When the big players have exited that, and then they come back. Your Aldi's, your Lidl's, all of your Waitrose as well. They suddenly plump money into going into that area because they know that actually, if there's housing developments and there's X amount of hundreds more people or thousands more people, well, they're going to need to go somewhere. So let's get in there.
That's it.
It's already agreed for 1,000 houses and apartments already to be by the Farnborough Recreation Centre. Obviously, that's been knocked down and that's been redeveloped, and a lot of money's been spent with regards to that. So hopefully, we have something like the Camberley Arena.
That's places now.
Camberley Places. But Lidl has actually just come into to Farnborough. There is talks about other bigger players. The biggest problem with Farnborough, there's a lot of potential and there is a lot of talk about redevelopment. It's just been one of the slowest areas in doing that. When sort of Aldershot has surpassed us in the money being spent already and the building already being built, Farnborough is still in the in the redevelopment stages. It's coming.
Which technically means, at the same time, that's also probably to a certain point restricting values. Which is why I find in the next 5-10 years, we look at that kind of cycle, then when the town centre is going to offer an awful lot more and a hell of a lot more to people and residents, then prices will naturally start to creep up for investment and for normal residential purposes anyway. Well,
this is the point, is looking at a direct comparison. In Bracknell, the town centre was an absolute joke for a number of years. And the only place anyone would go was the retail park just off the town centre. And I see that reflected in Farnborough, that the retail park just off the town centre, you can't drive into it, where the B&Q and everything like that just off the back roundabout is, because it's so busy. So people want to be there, and those big retail parks are thriving. It's just a case of putting the money into the town centre, which, as you say, will reflect in values. And speaking from personal experience in Bracknell, house prices popped when the groundwork went into the new town centre. So it's a case for investors: is it going to happen? When will it happen? And can I get in before the builders get onto the town centre land?
The truth is, yes, it will happen. And a lot of it is being talked for 2025. But at the moment, I can only tell you it's talk.
There we go.
That is the date. The Mead Centre at the moment has been bought out. And I've got friends that actually work within the Meads, a shop in there. And the big companies have already been told, they've got a time for. I think if you need to be need to be moved, and that is going to happen.
If you were looking at it from an investor point of view, I suppose it depends what your goals are as an investor. If you've got a long-term strategy, then if this is going to happen in 5 or 10 years' time, then if I was an investor, I'll be going in there now. Because I know that it's going to happen. It's being talked about. There might be a few delays on it, but my long-term strategy is 10 years. So of course I'm going to buy now, because I'm going to see an increase in those prices, because if these players go in, I'm going to make some serious cash here.
You go through the town centre, it's already blocked off, isn't it? It's already blocked off with the big pictures on the blocked off walls. So something's happening.
They've made
And
a
it isn't.
commitment.
Exactly.
Put a statement out.
Exactly.
And that's the thing, and don't forget, as well as all of that, you're always going to have the mainline station. You're always going to have the
Yes,
A3.
yeah.
You're always going to have the A331. You're always going to have access. It's always going to be a perfect commuter town in that respect. So that's as good a reason as any to consider it. For
So
an
you're
investor
coming
purpose.
from a low base. That the guarantees are there, and it can only get better.
Exactly.
They're not going to take a mainline station or the M3 away from you.
Exactly.
They're not going to take the two biggest sixth form colleges in the county away from you.
Well, one's a university as well.
Exactly. So those things are all there. So within Farnborough, let's get some real local knowledge here. What are the properties that you would buy to let, and why?
I would say at the moment, I mean, the simple ones are you got to be relatively careful with apartments, 2-bedroom apartments. The yields can be really, really good. Obviously, depending on clearly what price you pay for them, because at the moment they're hovering around sort of between 1,000 and 1,200 quid for a fairly sort of typical 2-bedroom, one or even 2-bedroom, one or 2-bedroom, 1 or 2 bath apartment. But the issues, obviously, you need to take into account the ongoing lease issues, length of lease, etc., and obviously the issues that we have with doubling ground rents and deeds of variation, etc., etc. So do your research first before you buy. But I would say that is, if one is on a limited budget where they can't buy freehold, then obviously that's clearly your only option. But buying 2 bedrooms over one is definitely the way forward. And upwards of that, 2 and 3 bedroom houses all day long. 2 bedrooms. I mean, what we're looking at for your average 2-bedroom terrace semi at the moment.
Cromwell way at 340, haven't we?
Yeah, which we sold.
Yeah.
Fell through, but in 3 bedrooms, probably 350 upwards, I would say.
Yes,
depending on where. But for something that's going to be in a nice established location, that's
longevity
what
of someone staying there a lot longer.
Yeah.
Are there any secret developments out there with a certain house type that can have value added really quickly and really easily?
I think the simple ones, obviously, if you want to go simplicity, which obviously a lot of career landlords do, or any landlords do for that matter. But if you're going to go for a modern 2-3 bedroom property, they're easy to knock around. They're easy to replace a kitchen or a bathroom and to redecorate and refloor, and they're generally going to be good for the next 20 plus years. That's the kind of thing I would be going for if I was simply looking to build a portfolio. Agree?
Silent nod. For the camera. I felt like I was in a police interview then when I said that. I just thought I'd throw it in.
The benefit of the camera.
Yeah, exactly. It's like 24 hours in custody in the studio today. So let's round off where we are in the market at the moment. As I said at the top of the show, the vast majority of buy-to-let landlords are selling up right now, and I don't blame them. Taxes have gone up, mortgage rates are on the way up from where they were, and obviously house prices have gone up, 25% in 3 years across a region. So you can see why it's a good place to cash in. Speaking to a landlord this morning, one of mine, he rents 3 with us, and he's called me this morning and said, "Mike, I feel like it's a good time to buy." I'll tell you why I feel like it's a good time to buy, because rents have gone through the roof. So surely I can get a better return on my money than I could do 3 years ago. My answer is yes. Is that the case in Farnborough? And in the next 12 months, where does that go in your area?
I think it's definitely the case in Farnborough, definitely.
Yeah, I've got no argument against either.
So what sort of numbers? You're listing rental properties now. What sort of numbers are you getting? Inquiries if you list a 2 or a 3 bed house or flat?
Okay, well, I mean, put it in perspective. So
people need to hear this because it's almost unbelievable.
Yeah,
it's Gardens.
Well, I'll start with one flat one freeholders, which was a lovely 1-bedroom ground floor apartment, Masonette. 63 viewing requests on it. 63, and that was literally in the course of about 4 days. There wasn't time to get them all done, and you feel awful letting people, because everyone deserves a fair crack of the whip, but you have to go first come first serve, obviously. So naturally that had an abundance of people putting offers on it. Haskins Gardens, as Steve just mentioned, that literally rocketed out straight away. Then I think we
take that off the market.
Well, we had about 32. It was 32 viewing requests on that one.
It was within a day.
And that was literally that was within a day. And then there was Broadlands over in Frimley, which again, beautiful 3-bed linked detached house. Now that one, I think we were within about 3 hours, we had about 15 viewing requests on that, and that's how it is. It is very similar to how the sales market was, before things started to dip. So we all know they kind of work in to a certain element in tandem, don't they? But it's very hard for tenants. I don't think that many people talk about that at the moment. It's really hard for tenants at the moment, and to stand out, because rather than just being another tenant who looking for whatever it might be, and I tell you what does matter, and this is something I think is important as a brand, and certainly the way that we work is the amount of tenants who said, even if I was going back saying I'm sorry we're fully booked now for the open day, so they said all of them, thank you for at least coming back to us, because the amount of people that don't, or agents that don't come back to us, and that's another broken
that's a reflection. It's a massive reflection on the market, isn't it?
Every single one of those inquiries we went back to, even if it was to say, look, really sorry, it's a first come first serve basis. The first 20 viewings are booked. We're going to have multiple offers already, and you have to sort of sift through. Some people weren't suitable for it, earnings weren't enough, or might have had pets or whatever it might be. But you have to filter through them to a certain point, but you have to let a lot of people down, and that's not. I think that's
just I think in these times now that is the norm. It's the norm now with these tenants, and with more landlords exiting the market, there's going to be less rental properties, so tenants are going to find it even harder, unfortunately. Obviously rental prices will continue to increase because there's less stock, there's more competition, so naturally if you're an investor, you're going to get more money, aren't you, on your returns. So it's a weird one at the moment, because I've been speaking to applicants, they don't hear back from agents, and agents get 30 or 40 applicants that come through. They're just going to pick their top 5 and have done with the rest. So it's tough for tenants, but on the flip side, great for landlords and investors.
It's a genuine question I get asked by landlords: is if I buy a 2-bed flat, have you got tenants? It's a question that was a fair question maybe 10 years ago or 5 years ago in certain towns, where I would see an agent might have 30 or 40 listing and just flat after flat after flat, which would take maybe 6 weeks to get rented. You'd have to reduce it and you'd have to work on it. But the have you got tenants question now, it still gets asked, because landlords don't buy every 12. They don't rent their house out every 12 minutes to know the pulse on the market.
I did this morning.
And it's just got to be said to say to people who listen to the podcast, because generally people who have got an eye on the market or an eye on buying something, that we're getting 65 odd inquiries per property. So in theory,
48 hours.
I could rent 65 properties every couple of days.
Yeah.
If the supply was there. Yeah. So you could build 1,000 flats in Farnborough and have them let in 18 days. I don't know, fag packet maths. That's the level that we're at, from a demand and supply imbalance. So if you're on the fence about it, but you're thinking, oh well, will it rent, won't it rent, well, it's just not a question at the moment, which is unbelievable. But it only the pointers only serve for it to get worse or better, depending on which side of that fence you're on, because it's just a demand supply imbalance.
Yeah,
exactly.
I think if you are an investor, just get the correct advice from the correct people. We see it in the media. The only thing that we see in sort of media at the moment is the negative side of things. But actually, when you look into things, it's like the renters reform that recently was discussed and was discussed in Parliament, etc., etc. But actually, if you look at some of the stuff within that, there's ways of getting around some of the things. There's some things in there that probably won't make it to the end when it does get passed, and there'll be changes to it. So right now, it's actually what are people panicking about? There's actually nothing to panic about at the moment. In regards to obviously, tax and costs going up. All right, that's a separate thing. But most of the landlords that I'm speaking to is that they're just talking about all of the regulation and all of that sort of stuff coming in. But it's literally don't panic at the moment. It's going to take years to come through. And if you are an investor, instead of sort of reading them, actually speak to the people that deal with this stuff day to day, and you'll probably get the correct answers rather than just reading something and panicking and then just wanting to sell the property. So yeah, it's definitely sort of, you know, making sure that you have that team there and those people that you need to speak to in order to get the correct advice, rather than just, you know, hearing the negative side of things all of the time.
So guys, we've talked about town centre regeneration, and we've talked about the wealthier towns around Farnborough that people tend to eventually migrate to when the time's right. What spots do you think in those local postcodes are going to see the highest capital appreciation over the next couple of years? Where would you put your money?
I think it's the areas of extreme convenience. So with Camberley, for example, generally speaking, apart from the usual, you know, the higher value roads, the bigger properties, etc., but I think the areas such as the eastern fringe of Camberley, you know, the estates, you know, your Heathersides, the Wellington Parks, the Chelsmoors, the Destingen Parks, the Mindenhurst, the new development in Deepcut. I think
we might have to subtitle that.
Yeah.
Carry on.
Sorry. That was a few.
You're flinging them off the outside.
No, my patch. But I think, yeah, those have always tended to do very, very well. But then I don't feel confident enough to be able to say, right, well, this part's going to be better than this part. So Eastern Fringe of Camberley is going to be better than, you know, Town Centre Camberley. I don't think that's the case. I think you'll see more capital appreciation on freehold property over leasehold, which is generally always the way. It just depends on how many more apartments they decide to build around the town centre in Camberley or convert. That's the thing, similar to Farnborough.
I mean, it's a question which postcode's probably going to see the better.
Well, yeah, you don't have to go with postcode, but yeah,
all day long. I mean, all the shots being sold. A lot of the army land's been sold off. A lot of more buildings being done. As I said earlier, its town centre is probably before Farnborough at the moment, because again, Aldershot's town centre is not great, but a lot of money is going to be put into that. So a lot of redevelopments happening in between sort of Farnborough and Aldershot. So yeah, I'd be saying
there's a big uplift in the style of property that's available in that gap between Aldershot and Farnborough on the old army land, which suggests that it'll attract the kind of London ripples of people who want to buy high quality properties but be able to commute in, which that'll be a new demographic to that area, I guess.
Yeah, it will be. It will be. And I think, you know, it's not that we have a missing sort of demographic of person who lives in these areas, but yeah, it certainly will. You know, whether it's going to be people sort of working at, you know, blue chip kind of companies or what, you know, it's going to certainly diversify the area even more. Okay,
so guys, thanks so much for taking the time to come in and discuss the options around Farnborough, Camberley, Aldershot.
Pleasure.
All your details will be on the show notes below, but if you do want to get in touch with Chris and Stephen, Chris obviously specialising long-term in Camberley and Frimley, and Stephen across in Farnborough and the surrounding areas, please do. They'd always be happy to talk you through the different options depending on what you want to do and what you want to get out of it over the longer term. So guys, thanks again for joining us. Pleasure. And we'll be back in the studio next week.
Brilliant.
Thank you.
Thank you.